Welcome back to this week's Hooking Up and Tracking Down Tip of the Week. I'm Ranger Boat Pro Staffer Steve Graff, and here today I'm going to show you how to rig a Texas rig. There are a lot of different ways to fish worms, but the number one way is a Texas rig worm. There's been nothing else in the history of bass fishing that's caught more fish than the Texas rig. It's very easy, very simple to rig up, and it's just something that every fisherman must know how to do if you're going to catch fish. And it's easy bait to learn to fish. If you can throw your bait out there, you can fish a worm. It's not hard to fish. But to rig it up, first you're gonna need a weight. I use a tungsten weight. A lot of times I try to get away with as little weight as I possibly can. Today, like today, the wind's blowing just a little bit. I can probably get away today with a 3/16, or even may have to go to a quarter if the wind picks up pretty strong. I'll go to a quarter, even maybe a ½ ounce. Wind determines what size bait, what size weight you want to throw. So you simply thread the weight on. Let the weight just go down the line. Then you want to tie your hook on. Depending on what size bait you're throwing determines what size hook you're going to use. Today I'm going to show you the trick worm, which is a straight tail worm. It's an old school bait. It's been around since the beginning. This was the first plastic worm ever invented. It was invented by Cream, the old Cream worm years ago. It's just a simple, straight finesse type worm. Easy to catch fish on, easy to rig, easy to fish. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do though, after I put my weight on, I'm gonna tie my hook on. I use the Palomar knot. I like to double my line. Thread the line through the eye of the hook. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Once my line is doubled, get the hook on there, like so. Tie with what you call a granny knot. Make sure you get both lines wrapped. Then you're going to take your knot, or the loop, and loop it back around the hook. And bring it all the way back around the hook. Pull on the line itself on both ends at the same time. But the first thing you want to do before you get your hook or your knot tight, you want to wet it. Make sure you wet it because it reduces the friction and you don't mess up your line. You just simply pull it down, tighten it up, and it's not going anywhere. That's as good a knot as you can tie. It's a simple knot to tie. It's an easy knot to tie. Then you want to take your little tag in. You just clip it off, like so, and you are ready to fish. Take your weight. The weight will slide up and down the hook, up and down your line. Now there is what they call a bobber stopper. You can get bobber stoppers and you put that on your line first, then you put your weight on, and what it does, it keeps your weight from sliding up and down a line like so. But when you hook a fish, a lot of times it's good for your weight to slide up and down the line, because when you put pressure on that line, that fish starts to throw. When he starts to jump, he throws that weight away from the hook, which gives him less leverage to throw the hook, okay? So that's one of the drawbacks of putting a bobber stopper. But the purpose of the bobber stopper, which would basically be to, well, let's edit some of that out, Ralph. The purpose of the bobber stopper would be, you know, somebody's asked me, when would you fish with a bobber stopper? The time I like to use it is if I'm fishing heavy cover and I want the bait to go into a brush pile, and I want the bait to fall into the brush pile, and I want the weight to go with it. Otherwise, when you throw it on a regular Texas rig, if there's no stopper, a lot of times your bait will fall on one side of the limb and your weight falls on the other, and you don't really feel the fish. He could be biting your weight and your hook and you not even know it, okay? So that's the purpose of the bobber stopper. Now, let's talk about how to rig the worm. To rig the worm is very easy. All you do is take your bait. This particular bait has a flat side. That's the bottom of the worm. You just take your hook, put it through the head of the worm, go down about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch, pull the hook through, just circle it back through, pull it all the way through to the top of the eye, pull the eye all the way through the worm. That way your eye's tucked inside the top of the worm. Here's where a lot of people make a mistake. They either rig it too far this way and the worm looks like that, and that's not what you want. You want this worm to hang straight. So what you got to do, when the worm hangs down, I look and see about where the shank, the end of the shank is falling on the worm. And I just pull it up, run it through, barely pull it through the skin, and just barely skin hook it right up, and see how straight that hangs? Now I'm ready to fish. The last thing you want, because if the worm is all knotted up and you hook it too low and you got that bow in your worm like that, it causes your line to twist when you're reeling it in, and gives you a lot of line twist on your line, and you have to re-spool. It just makes it rough on your fishing line. So again, make sure that you have no bows, no loops in your worm when you hook it. And again, just skin hook it, bring the hook back through, you're ready to fish. And this bait right here will catch you more fish than you can clean, okay? You don't have to get fancy with a Texas rig worm. It's the most simplest way to go fishing. It's just a great way to go out and catch a few fish. A great way to start somebody in fishing is with a Texas rig worm. That's this week's Hooking Up and Tracking Down Tip of the Week.